Audio, start video. All right. All right, great. So, and somebody's asking, what is the meeting code? Is it 386? 36? And a second here. 386. So you go to 386. 386 is the meeting code. And it's the code. And you can see it's one of the speakers on my computer here. It's not working very well. So let's see if and it's causing trouble. Maybe right now. Okay, so let me go to the let me go to the American history files that I have here and open up the lesson plan and also the syllabus before I share the screen. I can the syllabus here. And so let me go back to Zoom and share screen. And here's the syllabus. Okay. I'm glad I brought this to and so, okay, so here is the syllabus class. And it says, American history will be an introduction to study of major themes and issues for understanding contemporary American society. In other words, contemporary American politics. Why did Donald Trump win the election as president? We are going to explore that question here in this class. We need to understand American history to answer that question. And yeah, we need to understand American history to understand Donald Trump. And so I'm a political science professor. My background is in political science. So I'm going to look at history to explain behavior, qigong today. And the yeah, I can't really. I got this thing buried underneath the, and I don't want to break something by. See if I can use this. Okay, got a little more space. The textbook we're using is a popular, very popular, but controversial textbook called A People's History of the United States. And it is the most popular textbook in the United States for reading and studying American history in American high schools and in the American colleges. But it's controversial. And it's a big focus of controversy and politics right now, today, in the United States. And there have been attempts by Republican political figures, including Donald Trump, to ban Howard Zinn because he's considered to be hostile to the American political system. He has been condemned as a Marxist, a communist. And so I think the book is very useful because the book was written for American students, but it has been, by the way, translated into Korean language. And it has been translated into Korean language because the Ministry of Education in Seoul believes that this book is important. If the Ministry of Education translates an American book into English, that means that they think that book is important. And the book was written, however, for American students, and it was serving a number of different purposes. But one purpose of the book is to challenge American students' traditional understanding of their history as one in which the founders and leaders of the United States are considered to be heroes. Everybody, you, me, our friend here, you, we are not perfect. All of us have flaws. All of us have advantages. All of us have skills. All of us have wonderful qualities, but we also all have problems. And that includes the great founders of the United States: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and later American leaders like Abraham Lincoln. And so the book is meant to show in the textbook how these American leaders were responding to the most powerful political forces shaping and driving them, rather than those great men, and they're almost all men, and they're almost all white, are making American history. They are themselves products of forces and trends that they represent and that they ultimately serve. And if they are lucky, if they are fortunate, during a time of crisis, when there is a balance among the forces, they might have some chance to make independent action as individual leaders to change American society. And I have in mind perhaps the best example that we'll cover in a few weeks, the American Civil War, and the proclamation, the declaration by President Abraham Lincoln, the 17th president of the United States, ending slavery, the enslavement of Black people in those areas of the United States that were rebelling against the national, central, federal government to create their own, to try to create their own separate country, the Confederate States of America. Abraham Lincoln was able to do so as leader of the American military, issuing the Emancipation Proclamation, the proclamation to emancipate the Black people in his role as the leader of the military. And that this move to end slavery was part of his strategy to defeat the rebels, to defeat the South, to defeat the Confederate States of America. So he was at a time of crisis, and he was able to exploit that time of crisis to tip things in a time of crisis to move towards the abolition of slavery, something that probably could not have been done in a time of peace. But even Abraham Lincoln, he was racist. He thought white people were better than Black people. He said so. Right? But, and he promised he would not abolish slavery if he became elected president in 1860. He said, I'm not going to force the end of slavery. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But the southern states didn't believe him. They thought, well, they understood what I'm telling you now, that there are forces at work, deep societal, economic, and social forces at work that go beyond Abraham Lincoln or George Washington. And that's one of the reasons why Marxist theory is very popular in studying history, because Marxist theory has always emphasized these deep forces, not just studying the great men of history, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. No, don't focus on the individual men, focus on the deep forces that produced these people. And that's what Marxism claims to do. So let me, so you're seeing on the Zoom screen the organization of the class, and we have to cover all in one semester American history. So we're going to move pretty quickly, and we will start with the founding of the United States, the founding of European colonies in what we call North America today. And Columbus, he is one of these great men that American school children are taught from a small age that he is one of the great heroes, demigods of the founding of America. Of course, this is before America, the United States, was created, but the first European colonizer, the Christopher Columbus, for example, in my background, my father was Italian, and he came to the United States from Italy in 1960. And he was always very proud of Christopher Columbus because he represents the contribution of Italians to this great country, the United States of America. And millions of Italians moved to the United States in the 19th and 20th century. So for Christopher Columbus to be criticized and to Howard Zinn show, do you know what Christopher Columbus really did when he first encountered the people living in what is today Haiti, Dominican Republic, the island of Hispaniola? Do you know what he did to those people? Of course you don't know if you're an American student, because you're taught them, oh, Christopher Columbus is so wonderful. I'm just jumping ahead here. I can do this now that I have this computer here with me. I can show you how Christopher Columbus is typically portrayed in American textbooks. And just to show you a picture, it's always good to show pictures, you know. Not that one. I just want to show you, this is how Americans are taught about Christopher Columbus. So let me show you. Oh, is that it? No, that was the other one. Sorry. We'll do this exercise next week in class, just to show you how American books portray Christopher Columbus. So I can share the screen here and show you. This is from a typical American school book. There's Christopher Columbus. Oh, sorry, it's not going to show up there. You see Christopher Columbus there, right? Bringing civilization in glory. Columbus kneels in pious glory in a typical children's biography. This one is James DeKay's Meet Christopher Columbus. So this is what a small child going to school in the United States would read about Christopher Columbus. What really happened when Christopher Columbus got to America? According to this person, Theodore Bray, this is what happened. Well, you don't see it. You see it there on the screen. Christopher Columbus demanded that these Indian people, Aboriginal people, provide gold for him and his ship mission of 3 ships. That all Americans learn it, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Provide gold to these men and that he could bring back to Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain. And he said if they didn't bring back gold, and there's very little gold available in Hispaniola, the island in the Caribbean Sea, they would chop off their arms, chop off their hands, gouge out their eyes. And this was noted by observers at the time. So this is a portrayal from somebody living about the same time as Christopher Columbus. So people knew this was happening. But American students haven't learned this. At least not when I was a child. We didn't learn this. Why didn't we learn that? 95% of the population on Hispaniola, where Haiti and Dominican Republic today are two countries on one island, Hispaniola. 95% of the population disappeared, died, vanished from disease, mostly from disease. The Europeans brought smallpox and other diseases that these people could not tolerate, right? So that's what Howard Zinn sets out to do in this book. End the brainwashing, end the brainwashing, or attack what Marxist theorists call the Gramscian hegemony that dominates and brainwashes people so that we obey the people today in power in the United States. That I am the president of the United States, I represent our glorious history, you must obey me when I say we must go to war in Iraq, because I am the ruler of this great country that began with Christopher Columbus and George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and I am in that, approaching as president that same group. Obey, obey, obey. And if you don't obey, I'll make him punish you. I'll make your teachers punish you. I'll make your friends punish you, because we all want to be liked. If you go around America talking about this, a lot of people go, you make me feel bad about me. I'm an American. You're making me feel bad. I don't like you. I don't want anything to do with you. Pay a price. And that's being a human being. That's true everywhere, right? So, so here you see Howard Zinn. What do you mean I have to sign in? Oh, okay, I guess I got to sign in my Google account. Sorry. I thought I already did. Oh, got to check. Here you see Howard Zinn. Oh, right. Everything is two-factor verification now to stop fraud. So I got to get the number here. Yes, that's me. What? No, there's something wrong.
Words of the late historian Howard Zinn. On Thursday,
President
Trump lashed out at educators who teach about the U.S. history of slavery and racism.
Again, start over.
With the words of the late historian Howard Zinn. On Thursday, President Trump lashed out at educators who teach about the U.S. history of slavery and racism, announcing a so-called patriotic education plan to combat called toxic propaganda in schools. Trump called the teaching of critical race theory a form of child abuse. Last out at the 1619 Project, the Pulitzer Prize-winning series by the New York Times, which re-examines the legitimacy of slavery. Trump also directly criticized Howard Zinn during his speech at the National Archives Museum in Washington, D.C.
Just a second.
Left-wing rioting and mayhem are the direct result of...
One more time. So, and you know, the nice thing about it is it has the subtitles too. Now let me go back to share screen. No, that's not it. A second. Just a second. It's supposed to show here. 1 second, 1 second.
Direct result of decades left-wing indoctrination.
We end today's show with the words of the late historian Howard Zinn. On Thursday, President Trump lashed out at educators who teach about the U.S. history of slavery and racism, announcing a so-called patriotic education plan to combat what he called toxic propaganda in schools. Trump called the teaching of critical race theory a form of child abuse, lashed out at the 1619 Project, the Pulitzer Prize-winning series by the New York Times, which re-examined the legacy of slavery. Trump also directly criticized Howard Zinn during his speech at the National Archives Museum in Washington, D.C.
Left-wing rioting and mayhem are the direct result of decades of left-wing indoctrination in our schools. It's gone on far too long. Our children are instructed from propaganda tracks like those of Howard Zinn that try to make students ashamed of their own history.
So we're turning back now to 2009. Howard Zinn appearing on Democracy Now! Less than a year before he died. He just published Young People's History of the United States. I asked him to respond to a question he'd frequently been asked about his work. Is it right to be so critical of the government's policies of the traditional heroes of the country?
It's true that people have asked that question again and again. Should we tell kids that Columbus, who they have been told was a great hero, that Columbus mutilated Indians and kidnapped them and killed them in pursuit of gold? Should we tell people that Theodore Roosevelt, who is held up as one of our great presidents, was really a warmonger who loved military exploits and who congratulated an American general who committed a massacre in the Philippines? Should we tell young people that? And I think the answer is we should be honest with young people. We should not deceive them. We should be honest about the history of our country. And we should be not only taking down the traditional heroes like Andrew Jackson, Theodore Roosevelt, but we should be giving young people an alternate set of heroes. Instead of Theodore Roosevelt, tell them about Mark Twain. Mark Twain everybody learns about as the
Can you hear
author
that?
of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. But when we go to school, we don't learn about Mark Twain as the vice president of the Anti-Imperialist League. We aren't told that Mark Twain denounced Theodore Roosevelt for approving his massacre in the Philippines. We want to give young people ideal figures like Helen Keller. And I remember learning about Helen Keller. Everybody learns about Helen Keller.
Yeah, me too.
Disabled person who overcame her handicaps and became famous. But people don't learn in school, and young people don't learn in school what we want them to learn when we do books like the Young People's History of the United States. Helen Keller was a socialist. She was a labor organizer. She refused to cross a picket line that was picketing a theater showing a play about her. And so there are these alternate heroes in American history. There's Fannie Lou Hamer and Bob Moses. They're the heroes of the Civil Rights Movement. There are a lot of people who are obscure, who are not known. We have in this young people's history, we have a young hero who was sitting in a bus and refused in Montgomery, Alabama, refused to leave the front of the bus. And it was before Rosa Parks. I mean, Rosa Parks is justifiably famous for refusing to leave her seat. She got arrested. That was the beginning of the Montgomery bus boycott and really the beginning of a great movement in the South. But this 15-year-old girl did it first. And so we have a lot of, we are trying to bring a lot of these obscure people back into the forefront of our attention and inspire young people to say, this is a way to live.
That's Howard Zinn appearing on Democracy Now! In 2009. Howard Zinn was attacked by President Trump on Thursday. The Zinn Education Project criticized Trump's call for patriotic education. The project tweeted, "So what explains the rebellions in 1676, 1680, 1786, and 1831, 1859, and more by Native Americans, enslaved Africans, coal miners, and more? Howard Zinn wasn't alive then," unquote. To see our full interview with Howard Zinn, you can go to democracynow.org, as well as all of our interviews with Howard Zinn over the years.
So that is one of my favorite websites, podcasts. I listen to that every day pretty much. I get lots of great ideas from Democracy Now! Oh no, what did I do? Okay. So he's a very famous person, very controversial. He's been dead for 11 years. He has stupid sports. And critical race theory is a big topic that the Republican Party is using to try to defeat the Democrats in elections next year. And so so that's your author. And so let me go back to to my drive. You can see I have copies, PDF file copies of the book, A People's History of the United States, which I will make available to you. I will send you after class the link to these PDF files. It's a big book, right? Like I said, we put the book on reserve at the library. So, and there are many copies of the book at the library, including the Korean language translations. But I will also ask Dr. Copy to make photocopy, paper copies of the book, so you can have a hard paper copy as well. And I will send you email when those Dr. Copy copies are ready. You know, Dr. Copies across the street from the 7-Eleven next to the university. But I will also send you today the links to the PDF file, because I have a PDF copy of the book, right? So here's part 2 of the book. They're big files, right? And so I just want to see if I can open them up just to show you what I mean here. It's too big, you got to download it. So I can't preview it here. But I'll send you the link so you can download them, okay? And so let's go back then to the lesson plan and share that. Okay, so yeah. Now, I want to, this may be one of the most important presentation of the theoretical framework. The theoretical framework for explaining why I'm teaching or approaching studying material or approaching. And I want to talk about human psychological behavior. And I want to talk about human tendency, maybe not necessarily, but overall, human beings understand the world around them according to what they want, according to what they need. What they want, what they need, shapes and affects how I understand you, how I understand you, how I understand you. If I'm a lonely and sad man, and I want friendship, I will understand you and perceive you in a way that relates to my need for friendship. If I want to exploit you, if I want to take your money, I will understand and perceive you in ways that reflect that other need, that drive to exploit you. This is social psychology. We are shaping our understanding of each other and the world around us, including history, according to our needs, wants, desires. So when I say we perceive, understand the world in a way that serves ourselves, it's self-serving, it serves our needs, desires, and wants. That includes how we understand history. So if I'm Donald Trump, I want to be president, I want to become president again, I am white, conservative, Republican, Howard G. bad, George Washington good, Christopher Columbus good. If I'm Howard Zinn, and I have different needs and drives, I see the world in a different way than Donald Trump sees the world today and the history of the world today. So this relates to a principle called motivated reasoning. Our motivations shape how we reason and understand the world around us, including you, because you are the world, basically. I am trying to get what I need, satisfy what I want, and that means I have to be you, and you, and you, and you. And that will be reflected in my need to feel good about myself as well. I want to satisfy my needs for friendship, for money, for pride, for safety. And if I have to abuse you, control you, dominate you to do that, I want to feel bad about myself. I don't want to feel that I'm doing bad things because then I feel bad about myself. I don't want to feel bad about me. So I will, as a human entity, tend to justify and explain my abuse to you or my behavior to you as being not bad, good for you. It's good for you. It's good that I'm controlling you and dominating you. It's good that I'm going to Africa and taking you from Africa as a slave for America, because it's not just good for me and money, but it's good for you. Because, well, you learn about Jesus by being in America, you learn about Jesus Christ, and so you not go to hell when you die. Your soul will not go to hell, because thanks to slavery, you have encountered Christianity. So slavery good. And of course, look at those African people. Look how backward they are. They don't wear clothes most of the time. They're so poor, so poverty stricken. And they don't look good. They don't look like we white Europeans. This is motivated reasoning. And this characterizes the framework for this class in terms of the views we are using, the framework we are using here. So let me jump down here to a little bit. Here's some principles. And excuse me, I think you've already heard this. Okay, good to hear it again. Main points. I want to have a positive image of me. I want to feel good about me. People tend to want to have a positive self-image. Number two, people also tend to self-identify with other groups of people. So let's take me. I'm Ben. Who am I? Well, you know my last name, USHST. So I'm Ben, a member of the group family USHST. I'm Ben, the member of the group Catholic University Creative Persons. I've been a member of the group Americans. I've been a member of the group white men. I've been a member of the in-group Catholics. I've been a member of the in-group Italians. I've been member of the in-group Europeans. I can go on and on and on, describing all the groups I belong to. Some of those groups are more important to me than others. I am Ben, who is a Buckeye from Ohio, United States, America, 50 states, my home state of Ohio. How much do I care about Ohio? I care a little bit. I want Ohio football teams, sports teams to win, but I feel more strongly about the well-being and dignity and the pride of America. I feel more strongly about the well-being, dignity, and pride of course, the Americans. So some groups are more important to me than other groups. And I want to have a positive self-image, so why do I feel good about America? Because as Howard Zinn says, America is a country built with its very foundation upon slavery. If I'm a typical Donald Trump supporter, I'm going to go, maybe feel bad about America, so you make me feel bad about me. I don't like to be bad about me. I hate Howard Zinn, and I hate any college professor and any high school teacher who makes their students use a people's history of the United States. Those people are traitors to America. They're teaching our children to hate their country. How are we going to compete with China? If we have all of these leftist, Marxist, communists telling the students in school and in university, America slavery. Be ashamed of who you are, white people, for what you did to black people. Bad, bad. Systemic racism. America is fundamentally racist in every institution. And so that is the big debate, political controversy today on August 30, 2021 in the United States about whether or not Howard Zinn's ideas and critical theories about racism in America should be taught in schools, high schools, and governments in Ohio and in other states are passing laws forbidding critical race theory right now. So people tend also to want to have a positive self-image of their self-identification in group. So if I'm an American, I want to feel good about America, typically. So, and they will, to the point of stereotyping, they want to have an understanding of history that's stereotypical, that Christopher Columbus and George Washington and Abraham Lincoln built this wonderful country, and we don't talk about that things. We don't focus on that today. That's stereotype simplification. A stereotype is a simplification. It's an oversimplification. So emotion, like feeling proud of my country, and stereotyping, they tend to go together. Stereotypes can be positive, and stereotypes can be negative in terms of the emotions that they generate. So if I feel proud about America, I'm going to stereotype those people that insult America and stereotype them as lazy, as decadent, as sad and pathetic. Or during the Cold War, between 1945 and 1990, maybe they're communists working for Moscow, working for the communists to lead us, America, as we try to fight communist imperialism, who are communists who are working through stupid, silly, or evil politics, protesting against Vietnam War, or Black civil rights leaders really are at best fools working for the Russians, or worse, traitors for violence. Stereotypes, simplifications. This is all part of human nature. So, stereotypes can be positive or negative. And keep in mind, it's human nature to stereotype. It's a law. It's a law, like the law of gravity. It's a law. It's law-like behavior in human psychology. Not, there are always exceptions, individual exceptions. But when you take all human beings, all Homo sapiens, you see this current pattern, this stereotype, and you can predict, we can predict when people stereotype, how people stereotype, the kind of stereotypes, in other words, that they form in their brains, and on the basis of their understanding of the world, they make decisions. They make policy choices. They decide how to act. On the basis of your perception of the world, you choose how to act. And again, repeat the way people stereotype. There are regular patterns in these stereotyping tendencies. Across the world, across history, the way Black people are stereotyped in America as backward, as lazy, as violent. It's how Japanese stereotyped Koreans when Korea was part of the Japanese Empire. That Japan is doing a service for Koreans by civilizing these backward, silly, poor, poverty-stricken people. We're doing you a favor by bringing you into the Japanese Empire. You silly ignorant so makes you mad. It's how the Japanese still to this day in Japan among the Korean minority. Anybody to tell in Japan have an ancestor that's Korean? There's a term. The Japanese, until the around this country, the Japanese go there. They often investigate. It's not a future one say, she had a Korean other than her. That's the way America is how last. You cannot have history behind you. Dirty. That's why it was a big deal when Barack Obama became president. But Donald Trump is in many ways a reaction to Barack Obama becoming president. You know, when I first learned this, I was like amazed. Like, wow. You mean across the world, across different cultures and societies, you see the same stereotype patterns happen? The way Europeans view Jews is how Turkish people view Armenians when they killed them 100 years ago in the genocide. The way Indonesians view the Chinese minority in Indonesia. The way Europeans view Jews as money grubbing, They want only money, and they don't care about their country, they only care about themselves. If some of your people talk about Jews, that's the way Indonesian people tend to talk about Chinese minority in Southeast Asia. Wow, that's amazing. There's something in the DNA of people to do this. And that's at work now, as we see the rise of nationalism in Trump in the United States, and in China, and in Russia, and in Europe, some European countries. So, this stereotyping includes selective remembrance or selective forgetting, is another way of putting it. Just seeing the good things in the history of the past and just forgetting about the bad things. Selective remembrance, selective forgetting. And that's nothing new. I mean, just to show you that's been noted for many years. If I go back to oh yeah, no, sorry, that's wrong one. This one. Oh, let's do an exercise. Okay, so now it's time to do an exercise because I talk a lot and I know it's difficult to always listen to me. So you see that poll? No? Let me see if I can make sure I share the screen. So let me ask you a question. Do schools teach their students history well? Can you see it now? Yeah. Okay, so can you please respond as to whether or not you think schools teach students history pretty good job, pretty well in your country? There's no right or wrong answer. So we'll do these kinds of exercises in class. And this is one example of the kind of exercises we do in class. We typically will spend 1 minute on these poll surveys. So, and you get credit for it. You get credit for participating in these surveys. That's part of the participation part of the class grade. And so just a few seconds left. Everybody voted? Okay, so we end the poll. Well, 6 people didn't vote. You gonna vote? Another 10 seconds. 21 of 27, so 6 people haven't voted. Okay, so we end poll. And then I show you the results. And there you see the results. So 11 of you can't decide or are neutral. 5 agree that they do a good job, 5 disagree. So pretty much split in the class. So let me go back to that file that I opened there. So you can see, please respond to the following statement. Schools do a good job, and so you voted on that. And so, yeah, this is the Ernest Renan is a theorist of nationalism. He's not a social psychologist like Leon Festinger or Fritz Heider. Fritz Heider is this social psychologist who developed a theory of motivated reasoning in the middle of the 20th century. And Leon Festinger is another theorist of social psychology, highlighting how people want to see and understand the world in a way that makes them feel good. Those are psychologists, right? Those are psychologists. And let's see, I have some, let me see, I want to just close this. I don't have to look at it. And you know, it does all this funky stuff that gets in the way of the buttons. So I want to get out of the way of the buttons so I can close it. And Yeah, here is the Fritz Heider's book, and it's been reissued just 6 years ago. It's an old book. It's from the 1950s, when he was a professor at the University of Nebraska. He was one of these German, I think he was a German Jew who fled Europe during World War II and went to the United States and did great things like Albert Einstein and others. And this book is going to can revolutionize the social sciences, because I'm talking in these terms about motivated reasoning and perception. Other people talk about the same tendencies in different ways in different fields, like a lot of critical race theorists, for example. But you can understand this tendency of people to see the world in self-serving ways. There's a whole body of research that focuses on that in social psychology. But, and there's another famous theorist, if I can find him here. Yeah, Leon Festinger. He's the more famous one, who talks about cognitive dissonance, how people, they don't want to have conflict between what they like and do not like. So if I'm an American and America did bad things in the Korean War, I blame the Chinese for causing the Americans to do bad things. That way I don't feel so bad about America. That's an example of cognitive dissonance, right? People want to avoid conflict between their different identities and their different values. And they will understand the world, including history, in a way to make them feel like there was no conflict between being an American and being white and being strong and being rich and being prosperous as a white male American man. And if you were poor, as a black person or an Indian in America, it's your fault. You're poor because you're bad. Or your parents were bad. So, so let's go back to, and you know, just to show you, there were ways in other fields, to show this tendency of individuals, more importantly, of groups, including states and governments, to see the world in a self-serving way. And one important theorist in international relations, I think I told you, right? I'm a political science professor, is a man named Hans Morgenthau, developed a theory called realism. Some of you may have taken Introduction to International Relations, and you may have learned about neorealism and neoliberalism and the theories of international relations. Well, the most important theorist after World War II was Hans Morgenthau. And he was the founder of classical realism. And he had a principle or concept called nationalistic universalism. It's the tendency of state leaders to justify to the external world their government's foreign policy using broadly appealing ideological symbols. So when a country is expanding its influence, it will claim that's not just for America. We're not just for Nazi Germany. We're not just for Stalin's Russia. It's good for the whole universe. Look at the Japanese when they conquered Korea. We're not creating Japanese empire. We're creating a greater East Asian co-prosperity sphere. Why is America, was America in Afghanistan? For the human rights of women. Human rights. Why did Germany under Hitler conquer Europe? To save the peoples of Europe from communist totalitarianism that wants to erase being German, erase being Polish, erase being Italian, erase being French, to make them all part of the communist world. No! Germany under Hitler is saving the European, the white people from these subhuman Slavic and Semitic and non-white people's barbaric ideology called communism. Again, that's motivated reasoning. What's good for me? It's good for you. It's good for the whole universe. So back to that article. You know, this is a philosopher and a historian from the 19th century. Ernst, what's his name? Ernest Renan. He said, the essence of a nation is that all of its individuals have many things in common, and also that everyone has forgotten many things. What do we agree to remember and not to remember? And if you don't submit, we'll punish you. If you say Japan did anything good for Korea, careful. Yeah, so what must citizens forget before a nation becomes a nation? Ethnic differences, for one thing. No French citizen knows whether he is a Burgund, an Alan, a Taifala, or a Visigoth, Renan said. Ancient differences as to sect or creed must be left in the past. Every French citizen has forgotten, Renan claims, that in the 13th century, the Pope's armies nearly wiped out the Cathars, a rival Christian sect, and that on St. Bartholomew's Day in the 16th century, Catholic mobs thousands of Calvinist Protestants. Every French student never knows that. You collectively forget it, just like the Americans forget about bad things that they did against the Filipinos, as Howard was talking about. Okay, so that was the this relationship of nationalism and the education system to strengthen the control of the authorities over the people, including by socializing them, teaching them certain ways to understand the world. And Howard Zinn is trying to challenge this traditional way of understanding in America regarding America's history. Okay, so there was some reference to the 1619 project. This was a project that was published a few years ago in 2019, highlighting by the New York Times. The New York Times, I won't go through read all of it here, how slavery was present at the very foundation of America. When the first white people came to North America in 1619, they brought with them slaves. Brought with them Africans who were enslaved. And that means or implies that, try to imagine this, right? I'm a white man, you're a black woman. I'm going to exploit you. I'm going to make you my property. I'm going to make my property. I'm going to own you as I own a cow or a pig or a dog. What kind of motivated am I going to go through my head to make me feel good about this portion of the black skin, the different hair? You see, you're smart, and you can be smart. How am I going to justify to me, to you, and to you, me owning her like I own a pig or a dog or a cow? How can I convince you that I should be allowed to own her as a chattel slave as property? How can I create an entire world of institutions and laws to reflect that belief, reflect that desire, that wish to feel good about myself, to create a world all based upon this benefit I get from owning her as a slave, as a property, and justifying it to me, to you, to our children, to the people who oppose us in other places, and also, of course, how she rebels. How do you put her down when she rebels? When rebellion is against slavery. And of course, all those people who become the militia or police, they invest themselves in an institution where my job is to keep you under control. And I want to feel good about myself. So, yeah, of course you're something. That's the theme of that 1619 project. And we need to understand that the institution of slavery was present at the very foundation of America, and that has implications for everything else for the next 400 years. So, if I'm a white person who is benefiting from white supremacy, white European #1 supremacy, I want to feel good about myself. You're a poor black person. You are George Floyd. You're poor. You're not very smart. You take drugs. It's your fault. It's not the police's fault. The police is dealing with this black person who's high on drugs and didn't go to school. And it's your fault you're poor. It's your parents' fault. Why did your mom have you when she wasn't able to take care of you? How many children did your mom have? A different man. She's already married. That's it. You can't understand politics unless you understand evolution. You can't understand politics. Politics is not just about this. This is important politics, but this is only a small part of politics. You cannot understand politics unless you understand emotion. That means identity. That means nationalism. And this desire, I don't feel good about begging religions. Because I am begging religions. And I'm American. And I know it. And I don't want you to tell me that it's my fault. This is not how do you get to money? Trying to steal products and how to be about that. He's distressed and die. Because it's so hard. It's just less. Oh, it's my fault. It's my fault. That's what I'm confused. Okay, so complicated, interesting topics here. So, and of course, state governments in the United States are also banning use of the 1619 project in American high school. They're trying to ban use of that 1619 project for use in teaching students in American schools. Okay, so let's see if I can do another. What else do I have? Another exercise set up here. And if I go back to Zoom, stop share, and go back to polls here. And let me see if I can open up the other polls here. Okay, so let me ask you this. In general, Americans are more racist than Koreans. So I launched the poll. So please respond. Do you think Americans are more racist than Koreans? Thirty seconds. $20. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. Okay, so share results, and there you see the results. 9 of you disagree. One of my, let me open this up before I forget, because I'll start talking and I'll forget to open it up. But there's an article that I wanted to show you about racism. Is this the one? I think this is it. Yeah. Race. We talk about the white race. You know, when I was in the 1970s, when I was in junior high school, I was taught that I think that there were 3 races in Israel. It sounds funny, right? There's the Caucasoid race, Caucasian. There's the Negroid race, Black people, and then there's the Mongoloid race, which I guess is East Asians. Race is a modern concept. Race, I'm telling you this because I want to try to highlight how this topic is my sense is that Asians, not necessarily East Asians, are strong racists. They're strong racists because of the Americans. Because it was the foundation of the world, more than South America, on the basis of slavery, free labor, taken from Africa, taken from Europe, in order today, in America, United States, Brazil, or these other countries, that is the foundation of modern notions of race. These Europeans realize they could buy free slaves and take them to the Spanish colonies, the Portuguese colonies, the French colonies, and later the English colonies. And they had to engage in rationalization, explanations, and so they came race. Race is a product of imperialism, colonialism. After Christopher Columbus found what we call South America. Then that's when this relations of Europeans versus Africans, whites versus non-whites, first emerged. And that was exported by Europeans. That concept was exported to Europeans to new emerging, rising Asian countries, Japan. Japan was the first East Asian country to begin the modernization process, the major restoration, beginning also with the Americans coming in 2800 Japan and saying, you better open your country to our imports, and we'll bomb the Civil War. And the Japanese including all of these ideas. What is a great imperial power as an empire? Just like the British. We go to Seoul City Hall, here in Seoul. It looks like an English-British building by the Japanese, because the Japanese said, we want to be a great power too. What does the great power look like? It's like Britain. It's all like Britain, like the British, and the Americans supported these notions of race, race from the Europeans. And that has a tremendous impact in Asia. The tremendous brutality of the Japanese army, the Japanese War II, because they viewed Koreans and viewed Chinese. The way the Germans use those, that's human beings. There are even reports about how, 25 years ago, I was reading a newspaper how some old Japanese army veterans in their 80s were ready to die. And they were convinced to the world that when they were Japanese soldiers, they would kill Chinese people and butcher them like cows and sell the meat of these Chinese peasants in the marketplace. They're animals. They're not humans. But these notions of race and superior race and inferior, biologically inferior people like black people, that was founded or created in the 15th century, beginning of the 15th century. With European imperialism and colonialism in Africa and in North and South America. In this gigantic mammoth process of motivated reasoning and avoiding cognitive dissonance to serve self-interest, it was slaves. We became a lot of money. To make them grow the tobacco, sugar, cane, the cotton, the transatlantic slave trade. So this history is really important for you, right? Because race is everywhere, and it's not just in America, it's everywhere in the whole world because of the American-European experience. So this article that I was highlighting here in the New York Times highlights how white identity changes. I told you, my father came to the United States from Italy in 1960. 120 years ago, Italians were not considered white in America. People who were Greek, Italian, they were not considered white people. Today they are. And then that's this article here about this professor. It's an opinion piece in the New York Times, but it's written by a professor. Is an associate professor of government policy at George Mason University, highlighting how the notion of whiteness, remember, I told you, race is created by people, it's subjective, it's just here. And who is white over time in America. So today, in 2021, people from Southern Europe are considered to be white. And you see among certain groups how today among Hispanic Americans, Americans from Mexico and from Latin America, South America, many of them are assimilating and becoming white. Donald Trump got more support in the 2020 elections from Mexicans in America, Mexican Americans, than he received in 2016. More, despite always attacking the Mexicans as inferior, dangerous, dirty criminals, because people want to belong. They want to join the in-group. They want to assimilate. Please, let me become white. If not for me, so if my children can have an easier, better life. So this is just discussing how this notions of whiteness has changed over the years. Just to highlight, Irish people, they were despised. The truth is that just as population in the United States ebb and flow, the salience of racial and ethnic identities emerges and disappears. From 1845 to 1854, an influx of Irish people arrived on the East Coast of the United States, and outnumbered immigrants from all other countries since 1776 combined. Irish people were despised. They were Catholics, Roman Catholics, you know, we were at Catholic University. America was founded by Protestants, by the British monarchy that rejected the Catholic Church and the Pope. Irish were considered, like Italians, less than equal. Today, they're considered to be white. And why did that happen? Because there were economic and material incentives. but who always is targeted as an enemy tends to be people that are physically very different from white people, like black people. It's hard for black people to become white. It's not hard for Italians to become white. I'm white, even though I have a funny last name. But if you're black, how do you become white? When in America, like in Japan, if you have one drop of black blood, so you hide it, right? If you can, but it's very difficult to hide. Around the turn of the 20th century, American leaders began to recognize the accumulating effects of immigration and civil rights. After the arrival of millions of Irish, the 15th Amendment enfranchised millions of African American men in 1870 after the Civil War. And in subsequent decades, the United States admitted millions of Italians, Jews, and other ethnicities with their foreign languages, religions, and complexions. There was a gradual realization that the Anglo-Protestant orientation of whiteness was unlikely to sustain a dominant majority indefinitely. So, so the authorities in America, wanting to win elections, wanting to get into government office through voting, needing these workers. We need Italians, we need Polish people, we need Greeks, we need Jews to come work in our factories. I'm a white, Protestant, wealthy Rockefeller, or Aaron, or a industrialist who has lots of factories, but I need people to work in those factories. So let's bring in more of these people from Southern Europe and Eastern Europe. I don't like them because they're Catholics and they don't speak English, but I like making money too. And then we can also focus our dislike on the blacks. Who are among the most racist people in America? Recent immigrants. But soon to win the White House, Theodore Roosevelt found these developments alarming, with much of the competition between the races reducing itself to the warfare of the cradle. He wrote in 1894, "No race has any chance to win a great place unless it consists of good breeders as well as good fighters." Theodore Roosevelt really admired the Japanese. He thought that they were not that. He thought that they were white. Theodore Roosevelt that agreed to let Japan take Korea if Japan acquiesces to America keeping the Philippines. That was the deal in the early part of the 20th century to end the Russo-Japanese War. So let's have a theoretical framework. I want to show you how I told you this tendency exists everywhere around the world. And I want to introduce this notion of core culture. Core culture. So see if I can find it here. I think this is the right file. I have a lot of files I go through, and no, it's not the right file. Okay, well, let's see. Oh, yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you. I have to do share screen. Thank you for reminding me. Milton Gordon was one of the really important founders of political sociology. He talked about how a state, the United States or Germany or Italy or Korea or Japan, each state has a group of people whose culture dominates that state. Sometimes it's easy to name the culture, the language, the ways of behaving, right versus wrong notions, dress, cuisine, food, right? By the name of the state. So what is the core culture of Germany? Yay, Germany! What is the core culture of Poland? Polish, yay! But what is the core culture of Argentina? What do people want to assimilate into? This is the core culture. B. That is the group of people. Usually it's the majority of the population. And then you have minorities. You have backward minorities, people that are considered to be uncivilized, who are weak and being exploited because they're weak, and they're considered to be backward. That would be, remember, motivated reasoning, Africans, Indians, and they are stereotyped as lazy, childlike. They need someone to civilize them. Just like a small child needs an adult to raise them and socialize them and educate them to become responsible human beings. So these backward minorities, they need to be controlled and civilized. And we're doing them a favor by bringing them over to America. The A group are the advanced minorities. These are the people that, compared to B, are richer, more prosperous, and these are people that typically are involved in business. Jewish people, Armenian people, Chinese people, Asian minorities in Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia. And they will be stereotyped according to what we call the anti-Semitic stereotype, the stereotype that Jews have, that Europeans have of Jews. These people are stereotyped as being they're viewed with envy. I told you, stereotyping and emotions, or another word for emotions is affect, they go together. So they're stereotyped because of the envy that these people, B, have towards A. Envy, what's envy? Envy is a feeling, envy is an emotion. Envy is the feeling you have something that I admire, that I want to have, but you don't deserve it. You have something I want, but it's not fair that you have it and I don't. You're a Jewish person. You don't worship God the way I do. You don't look the way I do. You dress differently. You have a different accent in your voice. And you've got more money than me. You're Asian American because Asians are subject to this danger of being stereotyped as an advanced minority. You're doctors, you're professors in America. You don't look like a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant to us. In America, the core group is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. The founders of America, the language we speak, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. These people are viewed with envy and suspicion. And the stereotype is these people only care about money. They'll sell their mom. They'll sell their army in order to get cash. And most importantly, they're not loyal to America. They're not loyal to Indonesia. They're not loyal to our country. They're loyal to themselves. They work together with each other. We can't trust them. And God forbid, if we get into a war with China, traitors. They're not loyal. Or Armenians during World War I. Wartime happens. These people can be subject to genocide. Genocidal attacks. They're not loyal to Turkey. They're not loyal to Germany. They're not loyal to America. So what is the core group in other countries? In Argentina, the core group is Italian. I don't know if any of you speak Spanish, but it's interesting. Even I can tell when I listen to somebody from Argentina, which should I speak Spanish? They speak Spanish with an Italian accent. Mexico, the core group is Mestizo. Brazil, what's the core group? Portuguese. Israel, what's the core group? What's the stereotypical perfect Israeli? A white, Jewish, Ashkenazi Israeli, like not Benjamin Netanyahu or Naftali Bennett, right? They look like they could be off the street from Germany or Italy, you know? In South Africa, during apartheid, the core group was the Boer, white Afrikaans Dutch minority. They weren't even a majority of the population, but they dominated the society. And if you talk to, I remember seeing interviews of anti-apartheid activists describing how to be black in South Africa was so humiliating because you were always told you're inferior, you're backward. And black people would even do things, even today, right? Buy makeup to try to bleach their skin, to make the skin whiter, and types of cosmetics to make their hair straight, like your hair is straight. I mean, to hate yourself. You're not like the white people. Oh, you're ugly. And all of the messages, all of the signals you're getting from society is that you are bad. But if you're Italian, you can become white. But if you're an African, it's very difficult to hide being African. Or you hide that you have some African blood. So, and this is a tendency you see in all states. And so, of course, the core culture in America is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And okay, so maybe do another exercise. But so people do assimilate into the United States. America was founded by white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, WASPs, and then the other Europeans slowly did assimilate, some faster than others, right? Germans, and especially Protestant Germans, assimilated into the core group faster than others. In the US, people from Southern Europe and Slavs integrated more slowly, but they have integrated. Donald Trump's biggest supporters are from Catholics, white Catholics, and white Protestants. You remember, you know how badly the Germans treated the Slavic peoples during World War II. I remember when I was in graduate school, the American Nazi Party announced that they were going to admit Slavic people into the American Nazi Party. So Polish people, Serbian Americans, Polish Americans, you know, hey, you're officially white enough to join our American Nazi Party. I guess that's progress. Yeah, so in terms of advanced minorities, you see Jews, Greeks, Armenians, other groups that are in this category around the world and have been attacked. Indians in Uganda and East Africa that were brought to Uganda and Eastern Africa, like Kenya, from the British Empire territories in India, that then came to Africa. They tend to become the business people. They tend to become the shop owners. And they were attacked under Idi Amin in Uganda in the early 1970s. Stereotyped the same way as not really Ugandan, not loyal to Uganda. They're unfairly wealthy and prosperous. Other groups in this category, in Iran, Baha'is, it's in a Muslim sect. Historically in France, the Huguenots, you tend to find, for example, Lebanese people tend to be in this category in West Africa. They tend to dominate the economies in Sierra Leone, in Liberia. Some of these groups, if they're big and strong enough, might try to break away and create their own countries if they're minorities, right? And we already mentioned Baha'is, Jews, but others, of course, the creation of the state of Israel is a highly unusual, unique affair, right? Outcome as a homeland state for persecuted advanced minority. It's just ironic. The place that the Jews felt most comfortable in Europe was Germany in the 1870s, in terms of their perceived cultural difference between German Jews and Germans. It was the least in Germany. I mean, German intellectuals, Jewish and German, would freely intermarry with each other. But among the lower socioeconomic classes, among the shop owners, among the workers, that's where you found the anti-Semitism. Poland also has a stronger, higher degree of cultural difference. It's because this relates to how quickly the communities within these countries become politically mobilized and become politically participatory. The Jews typically were among the leaders in this process because they were involved in business. So they could see how human beings shape and affect the world because they're involved in the cutting edge of shaping the world for your own profit, own benefit, trade and business. And of course, Iraq, where there had been a Jewish community for thousands of years, after the creation of the state of Israel, almost all the Jews have left, gone from Iraq, despite the fact that they had been living there for thousands of years, because they're seen as potential traitors, if not actual traitors. They're going to be loyal to Israel. Yeah, so these are some of the more advanced minorities: Dutch Catholics and Protestants, French Huguenots, WASPs in the US, Zoroastrians and Mossadegh Iran, Hindus in Bangladesh, Sikhs in Punjab, Christians in Syria. They're all in this group A, and have been subject to attacks. Okay, so let me get to another. I think I have another poll. Where did that come up? Stop screen share. And so polls and stop sharing and share results. I think I already did that. Okay, stop sharing and polls. So here's a question for you. Success in life depends primarily on hard work. How do you respond to the particular statement? A person's success in life primarily depends upon how hard they work. Primarily depends upon how hard they work. Can you vote, please? Five seconds. Okay, share results. So, I think almost a majority of people agree with that statement, right? That so let me go and open up another exercise. You see here's the statement. Here's a study done from a couple years ago. This is about American hegemony, it's a judgmental word. I don't want to use it too much, but we use it again already, brainwashing, right? Here you see a widening income gap and sagging social mobility. It's difficult for people to get from poor class to higher economic class. It leaves dents in the American dream. But the belief that anyone with enough gumption and grit can reach clamber to the top remains central to the nation's self-image. Americans who tend to link rewards to individual effort routinely overestimate the ease of moving up the income ranks, while Europeans, citing an unfair system inherited social classes, consistently underestimated, surveys have found. We're moving from the bottom of the income ladder to the top. The South offers the worst odds in the United States. It's also the region where people are most optimistic about the prospects. So the place where you have the least social mobility, the South, the Confederacy, the country, the states that attempted to leave the United States to form the Confederate States of America. That is a place where still today it is most difficult to make money and rise from lower economic socioeconomic status. And there you find the strongest belief in this notion that if you work as hard as you work, the more successful you will be. 15 to 20% guess Winter is a retired contracts specialist at the Defense Department who lives with her husband George in a predominantly white Huntsville suburb. The actual chances of making that climb in Alabama are a shade above 5%. Nationwide, they're less than 8%. And in Madison County, where the Winters live, the odds that a child will escape poverty among the lowest in the nation. In other words, only 8% of children born to poor people become not poor in America in their lives. If you're born poor, you're overwhelmingly likely to stay poor. But you find the strongest belief that if you work hard, you'll be more successful. The harder you work successfully in that same place. If you work hard, you'll be more successful. In the historical legacy of slavery, Black and poor, because slaves are poor, it's your fault. You deserve it. You're bad. You're lazy. See how this process works? How this process can make you feel very uncomfortable? There are things that work in our brains that are happening. Americans are strong believers in what psychologists call the just world. In other words, the way the world exists is the right way. And if somebody's suffering, it's their fault. One where people get what they deserve what they get. If you're poor, you must not have worked hard or are lazy. If you're rich, it must be due to your own merits, efforts, and talents. If you're rich, you deserve to be rich, even if you inherited your money from your mom and dad, or from your Chino-Pa great-grandparents, collaborated with the Japanese. Europeans think it's much more due to luck. And that's because Europeans do not have America's history. Europeans were class feudalist states with strong class divisions. They've always understood for hundreds of years. There's the young man, the king and his aristocrats, there's the priests and the clergy in the Catholic Church, or the Church of England. There are the rich, prosperous people who own businesses, bourgeoisie in the cities. Bourgeois means city dweller, right? And then there are the peasants at the bottom. And that's the way the whole country is. But America was surrounded by people who said, no, We do not respect the Yamaha. We do not believe the Yamaha claim that the Yamaha aristocrats rule because they speak God and they take care of us on behalf of honey. We don't believe that. Because that's what the king said. I am king because God made me king. God wants me to make sure you behave the right way so that you go to heaven and not to hell. And that's why I'm king. And that's why I am. And you will submit to me, we will take care of you. It's called noblesse oblige in French. It's the obligation of the young man to take care of the peasants and workers. And in return, you say, yes, please take care of me, young man. And that's the word that works. America's different. America was founded by people who rejected the young man, who rejected the claim that the Yangban rule because they worship God in the right way. America was founded by Protestants, radical Protestants, rejecting the claim that of the Church of England, and not to mention the Catholic Church, that God wants a world of king and Yangban, clergy, bourgeoisie, and peasants. No. So, of course, I think that's this foundation of American exceptionalism. America was founded by people who rejected the claim that the world exists because God wants it that way. They were Protestant revolutionaries in the early years of after colonialism in the 17th century. And this notion or these ideas come from another book that we can't really use here in this class that I've used in the past, but it's been a while, and the book was published in 1997. Seymour Martin Lipset, makes this point, that American commitment to capitalism and democracy is founded upon the creation of the United States by radical Protestants. Because radical Protestants rejected the religious justification for the rule of the king and the aristocrats. It ties up with Max Weber's Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. You can find out your own personal relationship with God. You don't need a priest. You don't need a bishop. You don't need the king. You can have your own relationship with God. And you can find out if God loves you by being successful. Being successful means making money. And why not use those heathen Africans who are willing to sell as many slaves as we want to get as rich as we can? Okay, that's it for today. I will get this computer issue resolved. I will learn how this works. I'm glad I brought this laptop. I'm going to pat myself in the back for being resilient. That's the term we're all using in the COVID-19 pandemic in the American media. We have to be adaptable. We have to be resilient. We have to repair, change, shift. And I brought my laptop and said, there's a chance. I was resilient. So, okay, I will put the recording on Cyber Campus, and all of the files I showed you, I will upload on Cyber Campus, okay? And I will see you, I think, on Friday? Or is it on Wednesday? Maybe Wednesday for 1 hour class, just on Zoom, okay? So thank you. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.